Take me through there, take me through there. Is my camera kind of crooked? It look a little crooked. There we go. That looks better. Take me through there, take me through there. Take me through there, take me through there. Hey, y'all doing? What's happening? Y'all like my hair? It's all over the place, I know. Hey, how y'all doing? Welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Tay TV Shows Edition, baby. How are y'all doing? And we back at it again with another episode for y'all and another request. Because as I say, if you give me a request and I ain't got nothing else going on, I'm going to make sure I take care of you. Now, this week's episode is a request. Next week's episode will be one of mine. Can you dig me? And then, as I told y'all before, sometimes I'll do an episode of a TV show, or I might just talk about a character. So next week, get prepared. We're talking about just a character next week. Just a character of a specific TV show, by the way. Okay? Just a character. But this week, we're talking about a specific episode involving multiple characters, but with the caveat of it's gonna be a little bit different. You know what I mean? It's gonna be a little bit different. If you guys don't know, I did movies with Tay where I discussed the movies and I recapped the entire movie. With TV shows edition, I kind of recapped some of the episode and then I kind of like go like breaking down specific parts of the episode without giving you every little detail, of course. So that's kind of where we at with it. You know what I'm saying? And we're going to grow, and this is going to be a journey where it may get revamped again and it may get changed again. Kind of like what Movies with Tay did. Movies with Tay got very revamped, and it's going to get revamped again when I do decide to bring it back. But right now, we're jumping in to TV shows with Tay. And let's jump right into today's episode, shall we? So today's episode, we're talking about the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Season 1, Episode 6, Mistaken Identity. This was requested by Mr. Bellamy again. Once again, if you're watching this and you have a specific episode and you want to hear my take on it and or hear me recap the episode and see if I do a good job, drop it in the comments. Do not be scared. I do not bite. Okay? I do not bite. But let's jump right into it. So, once again, welcome to another episode of Real Talk with Tay TV show edition. I am your host, Tay Nicole, and we are going to jump into today's episode. By the way, make sure you guys tune in every Friday, 8 a.m. I drop these, okay? At 8 a.m. every Friday. That's Central Standard Time, by the way. And it drops on 3 platforms. That's YouTube, Apple Podcasting, and Spotify. And you can find those in my bio. It should be a link to these. I don't know if it's a link to the TV shows with Tay in there just yet. If it's not, I'll fix that and get one in there for you guys. I think it should be a link in there. But typically where you find one, you can find the other. If you type in Real Talk with Tay Nicole and then look, and you'll see it's 2 different ones. There'll be movies with Tay and TV shows with Tay. Follow them both. Get in with me. Lock in with me. Pow. All right, back to the show. So this episode basically, just as a quick little recap. So basically what happens in this episode is you got Uncle Phil and his wife Vivian, who are supposed to be going on a lawyer firm retreat with his partner, Henry, and his wife, Margaret, right? They're supposed to be going on some retreat to Palm Springs. Will was under the impression he was going, but not going, okay? Uncle Phil was like, it's just the grown people thing. You kids ain't going. Well, Will was trying to figure out a way to get to Palm Springs so he can look at the young ladies in the bikinis that wear them G-stringies. You dig what I'm saying? But he ends up, talking to Mr. Henry like, hey, wouldn't you like your car down in Palm Springs while you there? I can bring it down there to you. So he don't say that, but that's basically what he was alluding to. And Mr. Henry asked Carlton to do it instead because he don't trust Will, which understandably, Will is not the most reliable young man, just to be completely honest. but he's also a realistic young man. But anyway, we'll get into more of that in a second. So basically, Carlton uh, agrees to drive the car to Palm Springs. When he agrees to drive the car to Palm Springs, Will also pops up. Well, basically, Carlton and Will end up getting arrested for carjacking of a car, racially profiled, basically, and which ends up leaving Uncle Phil and Aunt Vivian to get Will and Carlton out of jail, right? So that's basically what happens in this episode. So let's break it down a little bit more because I want to kind of zone in on some specific parts of the episode. So when Will was hiding in the back of the car while Carlton was driving to Palm Springs and scared the shit out of Carlton, might I add, they were just driving, right? Will was in the back seat, then got in the front seat or whatever, and they were driving. Carlton realizes that he's lost. So Will is looking for an exit sign. He sticks his head out the sunroof thing to look for an exit sign, doesn't see one, gets back down in the car. He's playing, being goofy, joking, trying to make the trip fun and lively while Carlton's like, let's be serious and come on, bro, we really lost. Well, while they're doing all of that, Carlton and Will get pulled over by the police. Now, let me break this down for you real quick, all right? So when they get pulled over by the police, Will already knows what's getting ready to happen. So he's trying to give Carlton a heads up. Like, bro, when we get pulled over, bro, don't say nothing. Give him what he asking for. Just don't give up too much information. Just give him what he asking for. Well, Carlton goof ass decides to go ahead and run his mouth. I mean, running his mouth. And I'm like, bro, and I hate it's like this for us as people. But what Will was telling Carlton to do made sense. Give him what he's asking for, the driver's license, the registration, but don't offer up any information. Just give him what he's asking for. And then if he asks for something more, then we'll elaborate on a situation, a conversation, if it's need be. But Carlton couldn't do that. Carlton had to think that just because they're human, they gonna get a pass for driving around in a Benz. You're black. I don't care how preppy you look. You're black. That man didn't care nothing about how you looked either. You're black. You're black. So instead of Carlton listening to Will, he decides to run his mouth, right? Which ends up leading them to get arrested. But at the whole time, Will was telling Carlton, like, shut up. And he's telling Carlton exactly what the man's getting ready to say when he's going to say it. That's how you can tell when you've been down that road one too many times and you know the procedure. Even if you haven't done anything wrong, you just know the procedure. Well, they end up getting arrested, going to the, jail, right? So this is the thing that pissed me off about this episode, and it's never going to change. When Will was trying to explain to Carlton to stop running his mouth, first of all, I don't care how preppy Carlton is. You can't be that dumb to realize that your rights are being violated, bro. They had no probable cause to arrest you. Even though Carlton offered up a lot of information, a lot of what he said, they could have just easily did with a phone call and checked out the story, right? And then two, I think they got pulled over because Carlton was driving like real slow. But instead of the officer asking them were they lost, did they need assistance, you just instantly went into being fucking racist. And I get it. It's just, I don't know. For me, racism still being present and prevalent is just crazy. But I understand that, to be real and honest, it's not going anywhere. If it hasn't went anywhere over 200 something years, it ain't going nowhere now. So 400 plus years, this would be for real, from, But anyway, the point is, it ain't going nowhere. But then when you break it down and you kind of look at the situation, right? You got two different worlds. You got Will, who was raised in Philly. And you got Carlton, who lived this lavish, plush life since he was born. He don't really understand what Will's been through because he's been sheltered from it. Whereas Will ain't been sheltered from it. And it's kind of crazy because when you think about it, I know Vivian is Will's like direct aunt, because Phil is not his blood uncle. Vivian is, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Vivian's his blood aunt, and Phil is his married into the family uncle. So for me, it's kind of strange that Will, that Carlton don't know what Will's life is like. And I know what you're thinking, like, well, what parent would want to put their kid through that? I feel like that Vivian and Phil could have prevented Carlton from thinking that the police is always going to do the right thing because they're the police by putting him in Will's shoes. I feel like growing up, Carlton should have been hanging around Will so he can see. And I get they wanted to protect their son, but I'm pretty sure Will's mama would have never let nothing happen to Carlton. And even with Carlton living in the best neighborhoods, anything can happen to him still there anyway. But I feel like that there's no reason Carlton shouldn't have understood what was going on when it was going on, right? And then while they're in jail, they're getting interrogated, and Will is telling Carlton once again to shut his damn mouth. Like, don't say anything. Just keep it short and sweet. Don't say nothing else. Carlton just running his mouth, running his mouth, running his mouth. And for me, I don't care how preppy you are, bro. You not dumb. You can tell when you're being violated. You can tell when they're trying to persuade you into inviting or saying something that's not true. You know what I mean? So as I'm watching the episode, I'm just sitting there like, there's no way in hell you're going to convince me to come and tell you information that you didn't ask. I'm not volunteering nothing. I'm gonna give you short and sweet answers. I didn't steal the car. I was driving it somewhere. Now, the only thing that I didn't agree with is Will should have never really tried to because he made it look like Carlton was lying, kind of, sort of, when he was trying to keep Carlton from saying certain things. If anything, what I would have told Carlton is keep it short and sweet, tell him the truth, but don't add no extras to it. Pretty much all I would have said was, my father and his business partner are in Palm Springs on a lawyer firm retreat. We're driving his partner's vehicle up to the Palm Springs for him because him and his wife took my parents in a helicopter ride. You ain't got to believe me, but here's a number you can call them yourself and ask them. That's what I would have said. That's all I would have said. I'm like, here's the number, you can call them yourself. Literally. Because if they would have done that, it probably wouldn't even have went as far as it went. And then when they did make their phone calls, Carlton decides to call there to where his parents are at. And instead, I would have did what Will did. I would have called the house first. Because 9 times out of 10, if you could have, even if because Jeffrey hung up on Will did call the house and Jeffrey hung up on his ass. But think about it. If both kids call the same house twice, then it's got to be an emergency. But instead, they called separate people, both got hung up on, and that's that. Because Henry's wife, Margaret, her drunk ass thought that Carlton said he was in Yale instead of jail. I know they sound similar, but jail and Yale, jail, come on now. Jail, not Yale. You know what I mean? But anyway, I digress. So, after that situation, right, they both got their calls. Nothing happened. Like, they couldn't get anywhere. They both had Will had a brilliant idea on how to get Uncle Phil and Aunt Vivian to realize that they were in jail, which was to falsify that they're going to admit that they did the crimes, but only if a live camera crew would show up. So that's what they did, and it worked. It worked like a charm because it interrupted the video, the broadcasting of the game. Because that's why Will came up with the idea. Because Carlton was talking about they must be watching the game, so Will was like, "Ooh, bingo, I got it. I'm gonna just do what I gotta do," and it worked. It worked. But then, when Uncle Phil and Aunt Vivian pulled up to come and get him out, now you gotta watch the show for yourself to see how Vivian and Phil ripped that damn police officers apart. Them sheriffs tore that ass up. That's I ain't gonna lie. The same way Vivian came in and the same way Phil came in, that's how I would have came in 10 toes down about my kids. Cause ain't no way you gonna question my kids. They minors. Cause Carlton was a sophomore, which means Will was either a sophomore or a junior. So they're minors, and you have no legal right to be questioning them without an adult present at all. I don't care if they really did commit a crime. And you didn't even offer them an attorney or anything else. You just automatically assumed that they were the robbers. No evidence, no nothing. Just automatically was like, yep, they did it. But what really pissed me off was the ending part of this episode. In the end, when Phil and Vivian and them and Henry came in and cleared the whole thing up as well. Henry made it quite clear they are not thieves. That's my car that I gave him permission to drive. But in the end, and before I get to the end, actually, I'm actually glad that Uncle Phil did not lash out on Will at all. I'm actually glad because, any other time Uncle Phil would have been trying to talk shit to Will. But I'm actually glad that he did not talk shit to Will about Will sneaking in the car and did not blame Will for them getting pulled over. Even though Carlton tried to blame Will, and I'm glad Uncle Phil did not blame Will because it wasn't Will's fault. Yes, he shouldn't have probably snuck in the back of the car. He should have just gotten in the car like a normal person and told Carlton he's gonna go with him to make sure they don't get lost or whatever the case may be. But I'm glad Uncle Phil did not blame him for them getting arrested. That made me happy to see because Uncle Phil sometimes be on some bullshit when it comes to Will, but I get he's just trying to see the better in Will. But anyway, what pissed me off was when they got back to the house, Will and Carlton had a argument. I mean, they were arguing, and as they were arguing, it was because Will was trying to get Carlton to understand that the police were not just doing their job. They were violating their rights. They were not treating them as of humans, but as of suspects that they have no viable proof that they did anything. And Carlton's goof ass talking about some, oh, well, they were just doing their job. And I can see it from both sides. I can see trying to be understanding to a misunderstanding. Only if it would have been a valid misunderstanding. There was no proof that they had stolen anything. Carlton gave up so much information that there was no way that the police shouldn't have never assumed it should have never assumed that they had stolen it. First of all, Carlton was too preppy, too goofy, too nerdy for y'all to even believe that Carlton and Will stole the vehicle. Why would they like? And I get it, people can put on airs, but come on, this dude was telling y'all way too much information for y'all to really truly believe him and Will stole the car. Like seriously, bro. But what irritated me about Carlton was when Will was explaining to him that they weren't just doing their job. They was violating their rights. They were panning them out to be something that they weren't because of this color of their skin. Carlton still kept trying to say they were just doing their job. They were just doing their job. It wasn't until Carlton asked his father, Phil, what Phil would have done if it would have been him that pulled them over. And Phil was basically like, I ask myself that every day when I think about the first time I got pulled over. And it left Carlton to sit there in his own emotions and feelings and made him really sit back and think like, were they doing the most? Were the police overdoing it? Like it forced Carlton to have to sit and think about it. Like, because he said himself, he said, I would have pulled us over. You know, I would have pulled us over. But see, Carlton would have pulled them over with the intent to find out what was going on and more than likely would have listened and accepted their answer. And that's the miscommunication that Carlton's misunderstanding. He would have pulled over to seek to understand, as where the actual cops seek to pull over for racism, not to understand. And that's where the disconnect for Carlton is coming in at, is he's not understanding the reasoning or the rhyme of the police pulling them over. That's the problem. And I think that Carlton really truly just was blinded by racism. To be honest, he just was blinded. And it's like, you should not be that blind to racism, bro. You're black. So in the end, when Carlton had to sit there and think about what Will said and what his father said, it made him sit there and actually ask himself his own question, like, am I wrong? And he's not, in a way. It's a 50-50 thing. I understand Carlton's point of view because he's thinking that the world is just supposed to be this equal opportunity land of freedom, and it's not. Because he hasn't been, until that day, he hasn't really been open to the world of racism. He hasn't seen it like Phil has seen it and how Will has seen it. He hasn't seen it like they've seen it. And that's why I say Will and not Will, but Vivian and Phil really should have given their kids the opportunity, because the only kid they have that really isn't like that is Ashley or Ashlyn. Is her Ashley? Whatever her name is, I forget. Tatiana Ali, her character, Ashlyn. I think it's Ashlyn. I forget. Damn, is her name Ashley or Ashlyn? I forget. I ain't gonna lie to you. They said it in the show, and I always forget. I never really remembered what they called her. I think it's Ashley. I think. I forget. That's crazy. I really did forget just that quick what her name was on the show. But the point is, Carlton and Hillary are sheltered. I don't know how Ashlyn's not sheltered as much as they are, but them two, they're sheltered. And I think it's because Ashlyn got the opportunity to be around Will now that she's a lot younger than they are. But at the same time, there's no way that Hillary and Carlton, y'all older, and y'all definitely have been around Will, because that's how y'all know that's your cousin. So it's like, I don't know. It boggled my mind that, and it's probably because of the upbringing, you know, like my upbringing, I was taught to understand that racism is strong, prevalent, and alive today, and to not be fooled or foolish to think that people are always going to love me and treat me with respect, because they're not. Regardless of the color of my skin and regardless of my gender, no one's going to treat me with respect all the time. There's people who will and there's people who won't. You know what I mean? And then there's people who are going to be racist towards me and there's people who won't be. And that's just the honest to God truth. You dig me? But that's just my breakdown and my take on the whole thing. I know I didn't, you know, specify what I was doing, but you should have picked up what I was laying down. But caveat, who the fuck was cutting Will's hair? Because when I was looking at the cut, and I'm gonna find a picture real quick if I can, and I'm gonna post this. It's the only time I'm probably gonna put a clip in here. But did y'all see Will's hair? Cause who the heck? Go watch the episode. Matter of fact, I'm not gonna even post a picture because I don't want to even ruin your vision of it. I want you to go watch it and see if you catch it for yourself. Who the hell was cutting Will's hair? Cause what the heck was that? Will Smith, if you ever see this, tell me who cut your hair in that show, because whoever cut Carlton's hair should have been cutting your hair, because what the heck was that? Your hairline was jacked up, my boy. Carlton had that whoop whoop bow. You had that what the hell? You know what I mean? I don't know who cut that, why they cut that, but it was not working, my brother. And I think it was just the first season his haircut was just jacked up, because I want to say as the show progressed, his haircuts got better and better. But yeah, don't ever do that again. But in the end, before I close out the show, I have a few quick questions for y'all. One is, tell me if you were in this situation, what would you have done different? And I'm talking about Carlton and Will's situation. What would you have done different if you were in their shoes? Did Uncle Phil and Aunt Vivian handle this situation appropriately? And would you have handled the situation like they did? Who are you most like, Will or Carlton? I'm probably more like Will, to be honest. I'm probably more like Will. And final question. If you like this episode, do me a favor. Hit that thumbs up button for me and leave a purple heart in the comment section for me below. I want to thank y'all for tuning in with your girl. This is Real Talk with Tay, TV Shows Edition. I want to thank y'all for just being true to the game for your kid. I really appreciate y'all for rocking with me. I really do. And before I get out of here, I would like to say last week was the first episode for my new podcast channel, with your old ass podcast. The information is definitely probably going to be in the description. I would love for you guys to pop over there and subscribe to that channel as well if you're looking for real raw conversations between man and woman, and women and women, or whatever the case may be. As I get the opportunity to grow bigger, get better equipment, we're going to continue to bring the real deal Holyfield to y'all. You dig me? Just stick with me. I promise you it's going to get better and better as time goes by. In the meantime, in between time, I really want to thank y'all for rocking with your girl. Peace out. Oh, by the way, shows drop every Friday at 8 a.m. Central Standard Time for both podcasts. The main channel and then the backup with your old, well, not backup, sorry, the second channel with your old ass podcast. They both drop at 8 a.m. every Friday on all platforms. You dig me? Now, peace out for real.